Yo, 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 yo. What is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. And in today's video, I want to touch on kind of a recap, what I think are some incredible takeaways and major impactful takeaways from the TFS, Echo, SoD, JasonGee situation that I've been covering over the past 2 days. Now, ever since we had an opportunity to interview with SoD, a number of things have been illuminated. Things that some of you may or may not have picked up on. I can tell you, after those two videos released, I had a number of people from both sides, Echo and TFS, and even some others that reached out and just wanted to share their thoughts and also, to an extent, say thank you, for kind of covering the situation. And at least, what I hope, being as objective as I can and trying to ask what I think are important questions and ones that are going to allow for blanks to be filled, holes to be filled. And so, as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up because it helps out a lot. So let's start with number one for me. And I want to start with some takeaways. I'm going to show you some screenshots eventually, and then also some IRL screenshots that kind of tie some of these things together. Number one for me, as far as the takeaway goes, is that they're very much in the beginning. So for those of you that watched the SoD interview, about the first 10 minutes of the interview, to me, I felt really set the pace and the tone for understanding how the TFS relationship and foundation-ish was built. And let me be very clear. This is probably the most piss-poor foundation that could have been built if everything SoD said is accurate. And I say that in the kindest way possible, but also in the hopefully the most educational way possible, because what SoD illuminated to, and Jason hasn't refuted this, no one else really at that time has refuted this as well, and I don't really believe SoD has any intention to lie about this, especially when you're talking about how the merge came to be. And essentially what he said in summary is that they originally had intended to merge with, I think he said RR, some other group, another alliance, and while they were kind of planning and still kind of going through the prep period and processing before they actually executed players going over, things ended up just not looking as good as they did initially and throughout as they started finding more out. And so then, less than a week, or a couple days, if you will, left, they decided, okay, well, we need to pivot and find someone else to merge with. And that's when they came across Jason and DX, etc., and they ended up going and merging with them. However, when I asked SoD about these conversations and the kind of merge talks and how they went, and did he feel like everything was really hashed out to a point where it's like, okay, hey, we're aligned, we're on the same page? In part, there just may not have been enough time to do that, is what he said. And that, no, really they didn't have a solid foundation going in because there was a number of topics that they just didn't have time or were unable to touch on. Now, to me, the challenge here is that you could have very well spent, even if you just needed to find someone to go to for now, you could have always had those conversations right after the merge happened to figure out, okay, well, let's sit down and have some conversations. And this is from both sides, right? Jason, SoD, and anyone else involved. And you sit down and you have these conversations and you say, okay, well, look, we're going to stay for, we'll be here for a season, right? So you'll have us for a season, but we do want to sit down and have a conversation to figure out, is this going to be a good fit for future seasons? And that's totally fine. To me, that's almost what I would have expected to happen in any kind of professional setting, right? Why are you going to stay somewhere if you don't really know the true intentions and the way that people are and behave? And you could probably more or less get a good gauge on that playing with them for a full season. And so to me, it's interesting because on one hand, I can see where SoD's saying that they didn't have enough time to figure out all these particulars, and even though they did spend time throughout seasons having conversations, how many of them, for how long, what did they touch on, we don't know. Unless those specifics are corroborated by people involved, i.e. SoD and Jason, anyone else that might have been connected or privy to those conversations. But then, you go on, and to me, this is where it just doesn't make any sense. Logically, you would want to have conversations as early as humanly possible, and you want to put everything out there on the table, all your cards, And you need to figure out where your common denominators are. Where do you align? Where are you synced and where are you not synced? And can you find middle ground? Can you meet? Can you find some common ground? Can you compromise? And it very much feels to me, based on what SoD explained, which, like I said, I don't think is him. I mean, who's going to lie about, oh yeah, well, we wanted to merge with someone and then we had to make a decision because it just didn't work out, and we only had a finite, very minimal amount of time to find another merge, and we decided to merge with DX. Right now, again, as I said, unless Jason or someone else comes out to refute that and says that, oh yeah, no, we spoke about everything, we hammered out everything, and this is exactly what was agreed upon, and all that stuff, and I can see some screenshots. Okay, so be it. I'll wait for that. But operating under the assumption, or at least what appears to be more truthful and more logical at this point, is that there wasn't a foundation, really, truly, within TFS after the SoD group and the Jason group merge. And that in and of itself is really the most ginormous hurdle and complication that you needed to solve prior to. Now, preferably solving prior to. Even though there wasn't enough time, we understand that. And as I said, then the next step should have been, okay, well, let's figure this out throughout that next season and have all these conversations and hash everything out. And then let's get to an answer on, does it make sense for us to stay or to leave? And I think very much so, the answer should have been to leave. And that's based on everything we've seen happening now. And at the end of the day, them just saying, okay, well, I mean, it didn't feel right. There was clear things. Now, maybe they would have worked it out. Could they have worked it out? Sure, absolutely. But the challenge is that you have to be willing to sit down and have those conversations, even if they might be hard. Even if you might find that some of these discussions appear to be hurdles or obstacles that you have to overcome, right? Not all conversations are going to be easy, but most of them hopefully necessary, and especially in this case. And so to me, I think that was number one and arguably the biggest challenge, the biggest obstacle, the biggest hurdle that they needed to overcome. And it very much feels as though it was like those things where you just keep kicking the can down the street, but you're not actually picking it up to throw it away or picking it up to do something with it, to action it. And that's kind of what this feels like, is that just over multiple seasons. And if that's the case, I kind of put this on both of them. I put this on anyone who was really involved, who wasn't willing to have a conversation, to sit down and really hash these things out. Now, let's say that they did. Let's say that everyone talked everything through, everyone put all their cards on the table, and it just ended up getting to a point where we're just on two different sides of the fence. That's totally fine. And then people decide, okay, hey, we're going to go our separate ways. Now, on one side, SoD says that it was very difficult, and a few other people have said that it's very difficult to have conversations with Jason, as if you're having a discussion or you're giving criticism or constructive criticism or feedback, etc., suggestions, that it very much can quickly turn into it's my way or the highway. Oh, sweetie, can you turn that off? Wait a sec. Thank you. And so then on the other side, it's Jason and some people I've heard from TFS that no, we never really knew, right? Or we never got the full picture, or it was never truly or fully explained to us on exactly what it was. The challenge is that, again, at that point, with the kind of he said, she said, you would just have to see some screenshots. Like, we'd have to see if there was any actual discussions that went on where you see it in written form, or was there some kind of voice recording where we could actually hear, okay, well, was everything really put on the table? Was everything equally heard and listened to? And then was there a quality back and forth on trying to get to some form of a resolution? These are things that I just haven't seen. And we don't know, at least for those that are not involved and privy to those conversations or present during. And so then, with that being, I think, the first obstacle, we get to what I think is the second biggest one. And this very much comes down to soft skills. And soft skills, as I talk about often, are basically just the ability, right? Let me see. What's the definition of soft skills? I'll read this to you. At least one definition. So here's a definition of soft skills as it pertains to here. Let's just say, what is soft skills? Simple definition. So soft skills are non-technical skills that describe how you work and interact with others. Unlike hard skills, they're not necessarily something you'll learn in a course, like data analytics or programming skills. Instead, they're something you often build through experience. And to me, I just think soft skills are just the way that we communicate, the way that we talk with others. How do we interact with them? How do we engage with people? And this is very much something that I'm a big believer in. This is something that I can tell you how I have worked on and continue to work on ever since I started doing, YouTube content way back in the day when I was a media personality for a while, going around and doing interviews at a couple events. You very much quickly realize and understand that there are different ways to talk to people. The way you come across, the tone, your body language, how you're asking something, what word choices you're using, conversation flow, etc. There's a lot that really goes in to having good soft skills, and a lot of it is built through firsthand experience. It's built through you being in the moment and working on those things, or practicing, or assessing, being self-aware in that moment. And these are not really things that you're going to completely learn or understand, right, just through kind of being in a classroom setting or reading them in a textbook, right? You might be able to get some ground level understanding, but this is a lot more of a practical type of application that you're going to have to do to really gain and get the most out of it. Oh, sweetie, you turn that off? Thank you. And so with that in mind, the thing to understand is that I think, at least I feel, I should say, based on what I have come to understand over the past couple of days, is there feels, and this has been told to me by a couple people on both sides, that the soft skills portion of having conversations, even if they may not be easy ones, was very much something that people wanted to have happen, or felt that maybe needed to happen between the two. And as I said before, we don't know to what extent they had conversations, right? Is there a voice recording that we can hear from him, or from both of them, in a one-on-one or in some kind of a town hall, so to speak, where we were really able to kind of hear everything hashed out? Anything to that sort, right? Even if it was just other people, right, talking to SoD, to Jason, and them having back and forth dialogues with people from internally within the alliance, right? Any of those. And so that, I think, to me, is the second biggest one, is kind of how much of those soft skills and that due diligence was applied from both of them to really sit down and have those conversations and try to work something out. And again, from some people you'll talk to, they'll say that, yeah, they did sit down and talk it out, or, they did, nothing really came of it, or, nah, not really too much was said, right, because, it was kind of cut short by one person or the other or both. So, like I said, until I hear a voice recording or I see screenshots, right, it's kind of up in the air. But it very much feels that way to me, based on how things look at face value. For all the information we have right now, from people that I've had conversations with, that have shared information with me, these are the two biggest things that I think have really came down to. One, the foundation not being as set, or really at all, as it needed to be, to sustain all the pillars being put on the foundation, to all the building blocks being put on the foundation from season to season to season. If you don't have a solid foundation, it's going to crumble. And then on top of that, number two, with the soft skills, right? Having those soft skills, applying some of that due diligence in there to be able to have these kind of what I would at least consider kind of mature, grown-up conversations, if we're just putting it mildly and bluntly. And being able to do that to where those can be productive, right? Doesn't mean that they're always going to be easy, but being productive, right? You're going to be able to get to a finish line, regardless of how long it takes you to get there, how difficult, how trifling the road is, right? You will succeed in getting to some kind of a resolution. And so anyways, I wanted to show you guys something real quick. Because I did have some screenshots that were shared with me, and this is just kind of, I don't know if you want to, I'm not like icing or anything on the cake, but I just wanted to provide this because during the conversation I had with SoD, he did provide me some of these. He didn't mention it to me in the moment of like, hey, I sent you some stuff, if you want to show it on the screen. But he did send me something. This is just, again, corroborates what him and Jason had already said, but I'm just, again, for sake of showing it for some evidence, if you will. And then I'm going to show you some screenshots from me, IRL, which you guys might enjoy that too. So let's go here. So this is the first one. Sorry, there's really no way for me to zoom in on this, at least at the moment. So this is basically one where you see Jason said, I offered to quit to keep the community together, right? Saw gives an image. Bunny says you could still do it. Jason said offers on the table. I think this is from earlier in June. I think this is like from June 1st to end of May, something around there. And then you see Jason's, and then SoD says, swing R5 right now. You can quit if that's what you truly want and say it's available. And keep in mind, this is a couple days. Let me give some context. This is a couple days after Jason had initially provided the offer, if not maybe a little bit more than a couple days, right? Because SoD had mentioned during the interview that some time had went by after he had initially declined the offer to take R5, to do the CoD King, etc., right? And Jason had said that was what the offer when we quoted him in the first video. And so this is some time, a small amount of time afterwards. And then Jason says, I'll put TFS vote right now. TFS wants to use R5 and me to quit. I'll do it straight up. And then Buddy says, lol, bro, please don't. WTF, I'm gonna quit. Buddy says that wasn't the offer. No, not a vote. I'm asking for it right now. And then Boo says, don't retract. That's still splitting the alliance. You offered to step down. Not anymore, boss man. So this is just to show that, what SoD said, was accurate to the extent of, and this is where you get into a little bit of kind of gray, murky water. Because on one hand, we know that it was offered and we know that it was initially declined. And then you come back days later, or however long later, let's just say some small amount of time later, and you say, okay, I'll take it, right? And SoD had alluded to that. He said after thinking about it a little bit more, he went back to Jason and asked for it, but then this kind of stipulation was put on it when the stipulation wasn't initially said, right? It was just offered. So you have to keep in mind, both people have kind of had some time to think about it, and both people changed their minds on it, right? Do you put that more on the person who initially made the offer but didn't put any expectations? Are they unable to change their mind? Or is the person who declined the offer okay and able to change their mind and then retake up the original offer? So it is interesting because you have two people here that basically made two decisions that affected an outcome, and then both of those people changed their minds. And again, you can put however much emphasis you want on one side or the other, but that's what happened. And so some people may look at this and say, okay, well, Jason initially said something, but then he changed his mind and said, okay, well, no, now I'm going to put a vote on it. Like I said, maybe he had some time to think. Maybe some things happened in those couple days that affected him changing it. Do you see that as right or wrong? Same thing with SoD on his end, right? Initially it was declined. Couple days go by, however long, he thinks about it some more, processes, changes his mind, right? And now wants to take him up on it. So, yeah, I think the more interesting thing to me would have been if SoD took him up on it initially, and then would Jason have passed it to him? Like, would he have went through and executed with that? And obviously, from everything that was said, it appears that he would, from everything he said. But again, right, saying things and then actually executing, I'm just saying in general, right, you still kind of have to see those things play out, right, for you to really say to yourself, oh, okay, wow, that did happen. And now I want to show you guys some screenshots from some, right, so you can, because again, you often hear me talk a lot about some of these things. And some of you might be wondering, okay, well, boss, what experience do you have doing these kinds of things as far as like when I talk about soft skills? So, again, I like to believe that I always try to explain and to give as much, I don't know if I want to say evidence, but hopefully good reasoning and logic and rationale behind what I'm talking about, where hopefully it makes sense to a number of people. But I wanted to show you guys something that I thought was pretty cool. So I did this event a while ago, and it was me and excuse me for the blurry images here, right? I did not take these photos. But this is me setting up for a presentation. It's not my camera. It's not my equipment. That's just me and my dress, if you will. And I gave a presentation on soft skills. And yes, your boy can get dressed up and can look semi-fresh at times. Aside from my nice plain shirt, Taraj, or wardrobe that I enjoy. And so I did this presentation on soft skills at a law firm for about, I think it was like 40, 50 people there, right? It was for their quarterly budget meeting. And this is something that I very much love doing, right? So I used to do this thing where I would go around high schools, at least to a couple, when I was doing it for like career days. I started off at one, and I did it for, I think, 2 or 3 years. And then I did a couple others afterwards. And when I went to these career days, I would talk about the video game space, and as far as making it a career, like if you want to go into development, you want to go into 3D art design, do you want to go into storytelling, programming, coding, etc., right? I would talk about these things. I'd reference like Full Sail University and a number of other programs that offered at the time. And again, I don't know how they do it now, but I would reference to schools that had kind of more prevalent video game career pathing fields for education. And then I would also talk about the professional gaming industry, so esports. And this is something I kind of tied the two in together, but always kind of led with career building right into this path. And I remember when I was in high school, I used to get some crowds of 100 plus, right? Because multiple classes would sign up to kind of hear me talk about these things. And I'm sure they just found it pretty fascinating to touch on as well. And so kind of building that out like I talked about throughout my time doing this, through doing media, kind of personality work, and then eventually doing interviews with people, and having, I've had jobs where, I've worked with, 5, 6, 7 different contractors a day, right? Just different kind of supervising crews, if you will. And just basically what I'm trying to say is putting yourself in these situations to where you can take a lot away and you can learn a lot on how you speak to people, I feel is incredibly invaluable. And this is something that, again, for those of you who enjoyed seeing a little IRL picture, is something I love to talk about, right? And I love to put emphasis on there because not everyone is going to be great at speaking to people, whether that's in public, whether that's in one-on-ones. There were times, even when I was starting out, where you just feel kind of this uneasy pressure out of nowhere. Maybe you get nervous. Maybe your heart will race when you're going to go and have a conversation or an interview or anything that you might feel is something that you're just not, don't have a lot of experience in. You haven't put yourself in those situations enough. And I will tell you that over time, these things get easier. You just have to have more and more of them. But doing it in a way where you are self-aware and conscientious, I always feel like I butcher that word, we'll just say conscious, of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what are you going to learn from it, I feel is very important. And I feel adds a layer of confidence and comfortability to anything you're going into. Because it's not really about this thing you've never done that you're going into. It's you're going to go into this thing and you're going to learn something from it, right? So make the most of it and try to take away as much as you can from that experience, so that way you'll be that much more prepared, confident, and comfortable the next time around. That, I think, is going to do it for me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, again, do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think are the biggest takeaways? What do you think were the biggest moments in the TFS Echo situation on what you think really ultimately led to the split? Don't really want to call it a downfall because, again, everyone's still playing for the most part. They're just in 2 different spaces. But what do you think, are the biggest impacting factors that really played? And again, who loved my photo? That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, I'll catch y'all later.